Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Brent Bruning, who's here to share with us how to overcome your patterns and triggers. Do you feel overwhelmed and stressed, and you're just looking for a way to change things? Well, today's show is just for you. Brent Bruning is a certified master hand analyst. He's the author of the book, The Power in Your Hands. Embark on a journey to discover your life pattern. 100 remarkable people open their hands to reveal the ancient art of palmistry. And he's a transformational coach. Brent has read over 20,000 hands, including celebrities Snoop Dogg, Gwen Stefani, Beyonce, Tony Robbins, Ben Stiller, and many more. One of the many remarkable things that Brent does is he deciphers the greatness you carry within yourself and the life passions you are looking to discover. So welcome to the show, Brent Bruning.
Thank you, Marianne. It's great to be on this show to talk about what everything that has been in the struggle for everyone, which is stress and how to get out of it, triggers. So I want to reassure you how to get out of that today.
Well, I'm so glad we're having this discussion, but before we go too far down the road, I would love to chat with you about what it is that you do, because I think sometimes people get a little confused about, okay, are we doing a hand analysis? Is this palmistry? What is it that we're talking about?
Well, I have 20,000 hands on my computer, and I'm not really interested in hands. I'm interested in the sensory cortex, which is the way that your brain is broadcasting live your reality, and it's through your entire nervous system. So we have this concept now that we don't think with our brain, we think with our entire body. You know, you have gut instincts and you connect to your heart and you make emotional decisions and you have cognitive logical decisions. But what's amazing is the amount of time and patterns that you do that in any of those areas are all being broadcast through the body. And you can see those patterns in the hand. Why? Because the amount of sensory neurons that are broadcast through the entire body are really dense in the area of the hand. So you get a magnified version. So people think, okay, these lines are because of the way that you bend your hands. But that's not true. They're formed neurologically. And so they come with different stages of your own development of the brain, as well as through your own experiences. And deciphering that allows you to see patterns of what you seem to be talented in, as well as some roads you go down that you don't necessarily like. And this is an incredible view of the nervous system. So the last neurologist I worked with said this is the equivalent of a functional MRI. It's like 3 years of psychotherapy. We can see how you are. And so, no, I'm not a palm reader. I do not read your future, though you could say that the more you're in a pattern, and the more you're in this quote shadow side where you're fixed and triggered and you're stressed and you always have this automatic pattern in play, then yeah, you're kind of predictable. You act a predictable way. You become very predictable and you respond in a very predictable way.
So, how long have you been doing this type of work?
I that's a great question, because I guess the root of that came years ago as I was wrestling with my self-esteem, and I was trying to read everything, right? So if you walked into a bookstore and I was there, you would find me in the self-help section every time. And I was trying to feel better. I had really low self-esteem for no other reason other than I just had low self-esteem. No amount of belief clearing Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins was helping. It would just return to a contracted state. And then I realized later on, as I ended up getting my hands analyzed, that they were using a language of contraction and self-esteem from the International Institute of Hand Analysis. And it was revealed that self-esteem, when you're in a low self-esteem, that is a contracted state in your nervous system. So no amount of taking classes or reading a book, while it feels good to do cognitive psychology, um, there is a fundamental biological process related to that. So I had spent a lot of years in transformational coaching, and I actually had simultaneously doing software robotics. And moving over to Switzerland, we have the Institute of Hand Analysis, and I had my hands read, and I was blown away at the patterns they were able to read around my relationship history and some of the things that had triggered me and some fears that I had. And and that ultimately, that was in 2007, I started to enroll in the program to realize that this is not palmistry. This is something that is taken very seriously by people who have a career in reading the hands. And out of that career of looking at people's blueprint in the hands, you're seeing the complete anatomy of experiences, including the way people suffer. Exactly. From every range of the way that people suffer. That's all in different areas of the hands. So you're really seeing a kind of a catalog of different experiences and feeling them as you end up knowing these patterns. And ultimately, I became a master hand analyst. That means that there were a lot of modules to get there, almost a PhD level, you would say, in terms of the amount of volume of information we have to understand. So, you just put a handprint in front of us and you're like, you have to guess, who is this? What is it? What's their talent? What is their pattern? What's their trigger? What is their relationship pattern? What are they good at? What would they say is their life purpose? So I was skeptical about this. You should be skeptical. Don't be cynical, but be skeptical that when I talk about these things, this is a real phenomenon. And with my skepticism, I kept that up. I guess I went farther than any hand analyst in the world, I would say, because of that skepticism. And I'm glad that I have it, because through that, in my ever inquisitive mind, it's brought me to seeing in a very advanced way the neurological research around dermatoglyphic patterns. Those are those lines on your hands, and marrying it to the work from the Institute of Hand Analysis, and coming up with a understanding fully that we are all living a life pattern. And we know this because we look at twins separated from birth, identical twins, and they find out after 39 years that they have an identical twin. And exciting, they drive over and they find out they're living the exact same life in parallel. They both have jobs in law enforcement. They both married a woman named Linda. They remarry a woman named Betty. Both their sons are named James Allen. They both have the same Chevrolet in the front yard. They both love stock car racing, and they make toys in the back of their house. Like, seriously, what is this thing? And that, if you look at their hands, they have the same fingerprint patterns and lines. And what's exciting is that you may not believe that there is a life pattern for you, but consider these guys have the same handprints. They have the same fingerprint patterns. They have the same triggers. They have the same problems. And if you have a hand like theirs with the same fingerprints and the same lines, you will have the same pattern with the same triggers, the same worries, the same money issues, the same commitment issues in a relationship, this similar hangups and power struggles with your spouse. It goes exactly. So these things are not just psychological, they're biological. And what we're here to do is not seal people into a fate. We're here to liberate them. In other words, you are in a fate until you wake up. And when I can show you how asleep you are, how unconscious these drivers are in you, in other words, how triggered you are, and I show you how to get untriggered, you experience a life of freedom, love, and connection beyond anything that you have because of the fact that we can see the trauma in the hand and the triggers in the hand. Far beyond what Gabor Mate is talking about in his trauma work, far beyond what we see in 3 years of psychotherapy. We see it live in these patterns. And we can see exactly how much and how little. And having the kindness, the compassion to open the story up for you as you re-experience some of the feelings, but at the same time gives you dominion over your life to create a new chapter. That was a very long-winded answer, but yes, that's how I got into it. And that's my fascination is transformation, Marianne.
Well, you mentioned something I'd like to touch on. You talked about triggers. And it seems that there's always a time of year where people are going through triggers for one reason or another. So, how do our hands convey what our triggers are, and how do we work through that?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. And that is, I think, the main reason why people don't realize why they're coming to me. So when you go to my website, thepowerinyourhands.com, you'll see the people that we have, inspiring examples that we have interviewed. And we're not doing that because I'm not trying to establish myself as being famous, though I've read easily over 200 celebrities at this stage. But what we're trying to do is illustrate that these people have broken through really long-standing issues. For example, the theological advisor to the Pope. How did he get to be the theological advisor to the Pope? How many people want to be a priest that then becomes a bishop, that then becomes a cardinal? But the theological advisor, how do you get there? How do you get to be in space when you have a love to be a pilot and then a love to be a F-16 fighter pilot and you think that would be enough, but space, right? So there's these particular breakthroughs that people make in their life because they are in a pattern and then they somehow resolve that. So by studying people, how they get triggered or they stop and they go, no, I don't want to go further. And you understand what their psychological process to then say, you know what, there's no other way. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Then you start to realize that there's no one shoe fits all. There's a very unique blueprint, and that blueprint's in the fingerprints. So I can explain first exactly why this is the case. So if you're listening right now, you're just going, well, fingerprints are like ridge patterns and you can climb a tree better, according to the stupidity, I'm sorry to say, that is being distributed around in the common news channels. No, fingerprints have nothing to do with that. They are developed neurologically through your limbic system. The limbic system is that part of the brain that is developed just after the mammalian, just after the reptilian brain. It's called the mammalian brain, and it's the area where we first have sensation and emotions. And you have two main parts there. You have amygdala, which is demonizes the fight and flight freeze response, and then you have the pineal gland that everything's all nice and beautiful, and you visit it every night before you go to bed. Melatonin is released. So these two systems, with 30 others within the limbic system, are all producing emotions starting at 7 weeks. Before that, there's just a deadness in the hand. You're just as much as part of the umbilical cord or the placenta as you are anything. The house is just being built. And by many notions, the soul comes into the body at 7 weeks, which is really provocative to say something like that. Because how do we know biologically that there's a soul? I mean, that's been this discussion for, eons. What is consciousness? But in fact, consciousness is a state of feeling, of experience. And those experiences that you have are feelings. Otherwise, your feelings aren't doing a very good job, right? The feelings start getting introduced in the body at 7 weeks because you have a limbic system then. And it expands outward, kind of like, so think of it as like electricity, neural pathways are going all the way out through the body. And then when it reaches the hand, it's like a bonanza, right? It's like it won the lottery. It's like going all over the place. And the hand is your map of all of reality, all of it, everything. Your gravity, your sense of touch, your feeling. It's just a mirror of your brain. It is exactly the same. If you put your fingers together with your thumb around, you'll see, yeah, looks very similar. Put your hands together, you're going to see your right lobe and your left lobe of your brain. So this is a beautiful model. And if you really follow that line of thinking, you'll recognize that you have a complete map of your reality that is mirrored in the hands. So 7 weeks, you come in and you have all this neurological growth that's going in and is saying, oh, I love this area. I want to be an artist. I come from a whole generation of people that are artists. We're amazing. Or we're the Kennedys and we love family, right? So based on whatever you're epigenetically loving, then you will start to see that area grows. When you look at the hand at that point, it literally looks like a big ball at the end of the fingers going, oh my God, I love this area. And they'll be different, right? There'll be a big ball on one finger and the other finger, it won't be a ball. We're talking about 7 to 10 weeks, these balls are forming. And you slice them open and you're like, what is that? That's stem cells. So saying that person saying, for the love of God, I want to grow up to be that area, whatever that experience is. If it's an artist, a big ball is on the ring finger. If it's family, a big ball on the left thumb only. If it's I don't want a family, it's no ball. It's the opposite. So you're probably wondering, okay, what's with the biology discussion? When you can understand fully that there's a map, and if you at least can go this far with me to get that there's a complete map of your emotions that are mirrored in the hand, and you have to go visit your relatives for Thanksgiving and you're highly triggered, and that fear is an emotion, as well as a love to talk about what you want to talk about. Whatever that pattern is, that somebody loves to talk about news and Trump, another person loves to talk about their creativity and what they find fulfilling. They get a dopamine, serotonin hit when they talk about it. They just want to relive it. That part of their nervous system is this ball. And when the skin grows over that ball, over 4 months, you get a fingerprint of a circle, which means that when we look at your hands, I can tell you what you're going to talk about that's so fulfilling. What about the other fingerprints? What do they chop liver? Those fingerprints show the contraction at the time that you were at birth saying, this area, I don't want to go and don't make me. This is too much. What happens if your great grandmother survived the Holocaust and then went into the potato blight and lost 7 sisters? And somehow your mother somehow managed to get through and scrimp and save, and then had you with an abusive father who left her, and now you're alone with your mother. You'll have a compression on the left thumb saying, I have no sense of really good abandonment issue, or more an abandonment issue around family. And the father's missing. So you'll get a compression in the index finger. A compression, what I mean there is that the fingerprint pattern will not look like a circle. It will look instead like just an arch. So this is a sensitive area for you. somebody criticizes you or says anything that's frustrating or anger because you have an epigenetic trauma around violence and anger, thanks to grandma or great grandma, that's passed down, then all I have to do is just say and frown at you. You might be a little bit more sensitive. And as a result, your nervous system goes into a contraction and we're off to the races. It's a big, heady question. But when I'm looking at your fingerprints, I can see all of the ways that you get triggered.
Thank you for taking the time to explain that because I think it's so important we have the background in how this works because there is science to this. This isn't just wishful thinking.
Yes, done. Let's just be clear about the science. The science around this has two levels, and they're still trying to meet. Yeah, we have the Institute of Hand Analysis that has empirically looked at 500,000 people's triggers, 500,000 people's problems, and you see the same problems in the fingerprints. So, for example, what Richard Unger, who founded the Institute, he was organizing a handprint collection of 10,000 hands. And as a result, he saw that when all the people that had money issues had a contraction or a fingerprint pattern on the right middle finger, all the people that had responsibility issues. So you're probably thinking, what about my kids, right? What about my children? Yeah. Go to the power in your hands and check that out. Just send me photos of the children's hands, and I can tell you that maybe you passed on a couple things to your children, that they get wired and a little bit triggered in the same way that you get triggered because you have the same fingerprint pattern.
And so when you look at a hand and you see these patterns for triggers, how do you use that information to help people transform?
Yeah, well, one is a gentle awareness. So I would like to give everyone listening right now who are about to go into your family, and there's always that one uncle or father or stepfather or mother that triggers you. I would like to give you a process that we use to untrigger you. And here's a mnemonic that you can use to untrigger yourself. If you're driving, you might want to pull over and write this down because you will want to remember this. And you will want to get your hands analyzed to understand what trigger you have. All right. I'm going to say this again. You'll want to understand your fingerprint pattern so you understand the type of fear that you get triggered. Now, when we look at the rest of the hand, we can see how you act. Different people have different hands. I guess you know that, but the more similar your hand is, like I was referring in the twins separated from birth, the more similar your hand is, the more similar the personality and ultimately the life is. Right. So I can guess already. I can draw your hand out, Marianne, just from listening to your voice. I know exactly what your hand looks like. You know, it's a broad hand. It shows a lot of compassion. There's a nice round area underneath the thumb. You can really draw out somebody's personality by the way that they express themselves. In other words, the personality is expressing or it's suppressing. Now, if you take, for example, a CERN physicist, which we have in Switzerland, we have the particle accelerator here, and you go walk into CERN, you're going to see all these people with long fingers. That means that those are very rational people, very studied. Emotions are not their number one priority. Being right, being rational, being calculated, being understanding, that's important. So when an understanding, rational person with long fingers gets triggered, what you need to understand is that their trigger is going to be different than if Kendall Jenner or Beyonce gets triggered. So they're going to be detached, logical, standoffish, whereas another one's going to be a little more emotional. a farmer with these big, strong hands. His personality is different. Or somebody who votes for Trump, who the traditional, I'm talking about the stereotypical, as opposed to the stereotypical one who votes for Biden, right? The ones with the traditional blue collar, all American man, woman with big, thick, square hands that have skin ridges that you can see across the room. Everything's black and white. Either it works or it doesn't. They're going to get triggered in a different way. They're going to just cross their arms and go, I've just made up my mind. And they stonewall, right? How you act when you're triggered is an important distinction. But I also want to draw the distinction that you're not that way all the time. You're not always the cartoon version of you. Sometimes you come back from Hawaii and you're just amazing. And you're living and evolving in this experience that's awesome. But when you get triggered, you're back into a personality type. And I can go into the living room or I can go in the kitchen and watch you empty the dishwasher. And I know you're triggered because you're being your personality type, as opposed to when you're being loving, free, creative. Okay. So I hope that's clear. When you're triggered, you act a certain way. That way that you act is in your hand. And some people don't like the way you are when you're triggered. Okay. So you're not necessarily the most amazing person to be around when you're triggered. All the blood flow is going into a contracted state. You're trying to protect yourself. So that's one thing to notice, is to take the responsibility that you're not the most beautiful human being when you're triggered. And to be compassionate and kind to how much you are triggered. Now, that said, you asked me a very important question, which is, okay, what if I don't have a hand analysis? I don't have my fingerprints and I'm about to meet my mom and all she has to do is ask me, how is work? And when am I going to find a real job? And I'm back into the trigger, right? So when you're in there, I'll give you the tool. Right? And so this is a mnemonic. It's called rain and like. So you need to like the rain. All right. That's a good way to remember it. All right. So the first recognize. So call into your mind something that really irritates and triggers you. Could be your sister just walking into the room, right? Could be anything talking about politics coming into Thanksgiving. So you recognize, you draw out the trigger. You recognize it. What are you judging? What do you not like about this situation? You recognize it. And notice, interestingly enough, that's an area you repress in you, right? So if I don't like, if I don't like all the people that vote for Trump, I don't like that. I don't like his values, right? What you're actually doing is judging them, but you're also judging yourself at the exact same time. You're judging yourself for the fact that any time that you act in whatever opinion that you happen to have against people that vote for Trump, things have to be so black and white that they don't see the big frou-frou picture the way you do. You can see that area of being base in the way you're languaging it. I'm not saying that I'm not making a political discussion. I'm saying whatever your opinion is, that is an area you're suppressing. And you can see that there is a specific event and emotion. And if you stay in that area and imagine 4 painful futures in that area, like what happens if you just stayed triggered? If this is all the country is about to go to, that's all it is just going to be this situation for the rest of your life, right? Imagine another one. Imagine another one. Imagine another one. What you're doing, you're drawing out the trigger. You're consciously making it worse. Recognize it. The A in rain is that you begin to feel and accept it. Accept it. So you locate the feeling in your body. When you imagine this, you go, oh my God, this is a nightmare. You get so angry and frustrated. You feel so ashamed. You feel frightened. And your body processes it differently. Some people have it in their stomach, another person in their throat, another person in their left shoulder. And then the longer you have it, you get frozen shoulder, whatever the case is, you feel it and you feel it in your body. Now, you don't like the feeling. That's why you have the trigger. You don't like the way this interpretation and your judgment makes you feel. And that's why it is a trigger. So the problem is that you don't want to feel this. It feels like a bee sting. So to get to the next level, you must feel it. So I'm literally saying, put a jalapeno pepper in your mouth and feel it. Now,
well, not
how do you
exactly
do
the
that?
jalapeno, right?
It feels like sometimes when you're talking to your, father, sister, mother, it's like a jalapeno. So here I'm asking you to consciously and compassionately accept it and feel it. Now, this area that you don't like to feel is the fingerprint pattern I'm talking about that you can see in your in your hands, and it may be in your palm as well. You may be totally unconscious in that area, and you know nothing but complaints. But according to most therapeutic practices, if you can feel something solidly, consciously, kindly for 90 seconds, you're out of it. 90 seconds. And that's a long time to put a jalapeno pepper in your tongue. Now experience it with your whole body. So the trick is that when you're feeling it this way and you're out in the curb and you're trying to grab a cigarette and you're out of it and you're just like, I'm just can't do Thanksgiving, right? So you feel it. And here's a breath that I want to give you that's going to help you feel it more. I know you don't want to feel it, but just feel it. I can tell you because you can't get to the next stage unless you accept it. And you have to understand that as much as you don't like to feel it, you can get through it. My mom used to make Brussels sprouts, and we made it quite clear by holding our nose and drinking milk that we did not like the Brussels sprouts, but yet she made it every month, right? So this is the attitude I'd like you to think about is it's a vitamin, right? It's Brussels sprouts, and you just need to swallow it. Medicine does not necessarily taste good. But if I tell you that swallowing this, what they call swallowing the poison on its own ground, the venom will turn into an elixir. So feel it. So this is the trick. You need to go in and feel it, and you focus on breathing techniques to do that. One breathing technique is you just focus. You might have heard of Vipassana yoga. That's one technique. But while you're feeling this, you just focus on your nose. I know this sounds really, don't be driving, but when you focus on your nose, just those right, left nostril and the tip, and breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. You're getting into your body. Now do that for 90 seconds. And what will happen is you'll start to get out of your head and your opinion about this, and you'll start to have the body do what the body is meant to do, handle it. And the body will begin to absorb the feeling out of your opinion and your story, and it will then start to see and inform you, especially if you're really in rage. And then afterwards, you can just feel your feet. Imagine orange through your feet. Imagine orange through your legs, your hips, your chest, your head. You can go half hour just doing that and then come back. So I'm going to repeat. You think about your nose and you breathe through your nose. Breathe in, breathe out. Notice what's happening as your contraction is starting to go outward. And then you feel your whole feet, your legs, your chest, because the contraction is a very specific area in your nervous system. So if I'm asking you to feel your legs, I'm taking you out of the contraction. And then after you get all the way to your head and you can feel the world this way, and then you come back to earth, get grounded. Look at what are 5 things that you see right now? What are 4 things that you're touching? What are 3 things that you hear? What are 2 things that you smell? What's 1 thing that you taste? You're back to your senses. You're out of your head. You're out of the story. You're present. You're out of the trigger. Now, investigate. Now, here you might have heard of Katie Byron. Is this really true? The way that people that vote for Trump are your father is Have you checked with other people? I mean, now that you're in the presence of mind and you've stepped out of it, what if the opposite were true? Is this a theme in your life that you kind of make things wrong in this area? Did anything else perhaps lead up to this buildup? And this was the straw that broke your back, this last trigger? Because it's not really about your mom. It's the fact that you're kind of frustrated that you haven't been able to pass your grades, whatever the case. Is there a buildup? Get rational. Now you're in a place where you're like, okay, all right, I got this, right? You investigate it. And now what does this feeling tell you about it? Every time you get angry, you tell a stupid story. You make a lot of wrong, a lot of criticism. That is the trigger, and it's married to your brain, and you start telling a story every time. And after a while, your body starts going, okay, this is it. You do something for 28 days. What if you were born with it? What if you have a fingerprint pattern that says you're going to tell this story? So then nourish yourself. RAIN. Recognize, accept, investigate, and nourish. Can you now own this? Can you manage this? Can you forgive? Can you let go? We all are doing our best with the resources we have. They're all doing a code that you can see in the hand, and so are you. And everyone is doing their best. Sometimes they're triggered just like you. Can you give them a little bit of leeway? RAIN. Now, go take a cold shower. Go into the mirror and look at how you look like to the other person when you're triggered. You're not the most amazing person to be around. You might take some responsibility about that. So check that out. And then listen. Now we're going to go into the next, because you're not out of the woods yet. I just got you out of the game, but let's get you out of the stadium.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Brent Bruning in regards to overcome your patterns and triggers. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you an actor, public speaker, or an executive telling your story over Zoom? Jean-Louis Rodrigue and Scott Weintraub's new book, Back to the Body, takes the process they use to coach top Hollywood talent like Margot Robbie, Jack Black, and Ke Huy Quan and makes it available to everyone. Using your body and its energy as a point of departure, your work will gain an enhanced level of performance and depth. Back to the Body, available on Amazon and wherever books are sold.
Every day, pets are surrendered and abandoned. For these helpless and hurting animals, Paws Humane Society acts as a voice for the voiceless, providing hope for a brighter future. You can make a difference in the life of a shelter pet. Become a humane hero today. Just $10 a month will provide much-needed food, shelter, medical care, and love. It takes a community. It takes heroes like you. Together we can. Together we will. Together we are Paws Humane. Visit pawshumane.org to be a hero in every animal story.
What if everything we think we know about addiction, depression, anxiety, and trauma is missing the one key element that will actually let you walk away from them for good? My name's Bob Gardner, founder of The Freedom Specialist and creator of a body-based approach that eliminates suffering and creates happiness, health, and well-being on autopilot. You can read all about it in my book, Built for Freedom, or start your own adventure toward lasting freedom at thefreedomspecialist.com.
If you want to stop divorce fast, you do not need to waste years in therapy. You do not need to work on yourself, and you do not even have to have your spouse on board. If your spouse wants out, if they're filing for divorce, separation, or having an affair, what you need is a proven process to turn your marriage around. Book a free breakthrough session with us at highthrivecoaching.com/apply.
Dr. Richard London, who has 25 years of experience being known as the Man of Steel with the Heart of Velvet, presents the Life Wellness System, The Road to Yes, a mentoring system that brings you to becoming a wellness heir. Imagine having wealth, wellness, love, peace, and spirituality in abundance and balance now. Visit doctorateoflife.com or call 720-213-8021 for a free 15-minute wellness evaluation.
The first thing you need to know about me is that I love my kids, but they are not my everything. They used to be, but that's when my entire life fell apart. In order to pick back up the pieces, I had to put the love I have for myself before everything else, including my kids. I'm Jessica Dennehy, and I own multiple businesses. I'm a best-selling author, and I have all the strategies that I've used to make my life what it is today. And I'm going to teach you how to do them in my new book, Selfish is a Superpower. So go get your copy today on Barnes & Noble or jessicadennehy.com.
Announcing a revolutionary tool for wellness. Scalar Light has the ability to enhance and harmonize your own bioenergies. With Scalar Light, you can get started in just minutes and begin feeling better the very next day. Scalar Light is a remote energy that gently and subtly works with your own body's bioenergies, increases pro-cellular wellness, and enhances your body's immunity.
Experience the benefits of Scalar Light. Try a complimentary 15-day experience at scalarlight.com.
In your hands lie ancestral patterns. These patterns shape how you think, what you struggle with, and experiences you love, your life pattern. We're going into the latest neuroscience of biological hand analysis, a realm beyond palmistry where science and the soul entwine. Hand analysis is the latest method to transform lifelong patterns. I am Master Hand Analyst Brent Bruning. Join us and visit thepowerinyourhands.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music.
L-I-C-A, Leica. So the first one was rain, next one, Leica. Listen, identify, choose, and act. Listen. Listen for help. Listen for empathy. You're so busy talking and deciding how it's going to be. Can you listen for something other than the way that you know it's going to go? See, the problem is that if you're like, for example, me, married to a Romanian wife, going into the kitchen and she's mad because she's overwhelmed with 2 kids, and I somehow did not empty the dishwasher, and that was the final thing, right? No amount of, hey, I love you is going to help the fact that I haven't emptied the dishwasher or whatever things that I didn't do, right? And you haven't done some things, or you're judging other people. So no amount of song and dance that people are doing around you is getting in you because you've made your opinion that they are judged, right? So the best thing you can do, since you're in the trigger and you're the one judging, because that's what it does, is to listen. Listen for help. Listen for gratitude. Listen for 5 things that from the people that you are triggered with, come up with 5 blessings and things that you're grateful for them. I know it sounds hard, especially if they've been abusive, but you must understand it's a tango dance. I know it seems unfair that way, but I guarantee you, if you stand strong in this, there's some people you notice that are really great targets for abuse, and another person is not a target. Why is that? Why is it that we see the same fingerprint patterns for the people and they always have narcissists in their life and other fingerprint patterns where they're like Richard Branson? You have the Johnny Depp trial and you have the Richard Branson trial. What's the difference? They're fingerprints. In other words, Richard Branson is going to have a trial where he might have a problem with some contract, but he'll never be abused or mistreated in a relationship, right? So it's the trigger and it's in the fingerprint. So listen, and if you have an issue with somebody, that is your issue. It is your sensory cortex going into your contraction, your feeling of anger you don't like. It's yours. So listen, open yourself to another world, that there is a person there. I'm not saying to have inappropriate boundaries. I'm saying have good boundaries. But listen, what is the good here? Okay. And then in this place, identify, is this a fixed pattern in you? Or we call the shadow side. Is this a thing for you? Or are you in a growth pattern? Do you have a fixed mindset about this? If you do, guess what? You're in a judgment and I can read it in your hands. The more you do anything for 28 days, what happens? You do it for 6 months. It forms a neurological pattern and an imprint that I see in your hands. Therefore, it's fixed. So when I'm reading these patterns, I'm seeing how fixed you are, how fixated you are. And you show up that way to your mom already being triggered. Go look in the mirror. And you can see you're not a treat to be with. She might be triggered too, which is why we see whole new stories emerge when we get people out of their trigger. And then they come and talk to their mom. And then they send us a photo of them cheek and cheek after not talking to each other for 10 years. What happened? Impossible. Yeah, it's impossible when you're in the fixed shadow pattern. But when you're growing into a new phase in your life, in a chapter of your life filled with gratitudes and blessings, then you're going to start to see that it's a process we call trauma bonding. You're triggering them and you have two people triggered in the same room. It's called marriage. So you can easily get how much you're in that fixed pattern. And what you do is you then bring blessings to it. Why? Why would you bless something that is so awful? Because while you're in a contraction state, you're in fear. So if you bring blessings, you, according to Tony Robbins, he quotes this all the time. You can't be grateful and fearful at the same time. So what happens if you send gratitude in the same area that you're contracted? La-da, you are expanding your sensory cortex, which means that suddenly you're showing up beautiful. And that person goes, okay, I can relax now. You know, your defense is the first sign of war. Relax a little bit. Who would benefit with this? With you being in a growth mindset? Your children certainly would. And then look outward, your partner. And then see how the situation gets a right to change. It's evolving, and that you're in a growth situation instead of a fixed. It really has a chance to evolve, just like you do. You don't think they don't? You don't think the situation has a chance? Now, C, L, listen, I, identify, C, choose a mindset. And that is, who am I going to be in the matter of this? I love that I am now. Visualize your new self. Where you have been powerless, you are now powerful. Where you have been angry, you are now compassionate. I love that I am now powerful, confident. If you have a trigger around money and doing your taxes, I love that has triggered me. I give blessings to my taxes. And I'm now going to create a system and a debt management plan. I loved it. I'm now getting responsible and bringing wealth and a system to my life. Whatever it is, it's opposite today. It's opposite day. Choose a mindset that you're here to grow and evolve and become your exalted self. Finally, A. So listen, I, identify, is this fixed or are you in a growth mindset around this? Choose a mindset that works here, an attitude. And A, what is one thing you can do with this mindset now? Call her. Call him. Breathe. Go for a run. Do your taxes. Marianne, we're using this process to change lives, to have people who have been stuck in unemployment and homeless to get out of that, to go for people who have been in a long-standing abuse situations, sexually abused, and somehow have the courage to say, at this stage, I'm tired of my life of being triggered every time I even speak your name. I declare that you are now forgiven. I'm not going to let you necessarily around my kids, but you're forgiven. And when you wake up every day, reclaiming your circumstances, reorganizing your life, you become prosperous. And that's how people broke through major life patterns to become a pilot to an F-16 fighter pilot, to ultimately come to go to space, how a priest came to become a bishop, to become a cardinal, become the theological advisor to the Pope, how someone became a seminar leader who ultimately became Tony Robbins, somebody like became a rap star and ultimately became Eminem. I've read all these people's fingerprints and they tell the same story. They had to go through this process. So I wish you luck, and go to thepowerinyourhands.com and let me read your hands so that I can show you that this is no joke. You need to understand your triggers, and you need to understand that it's biological, and you need to understand your kids' triggers, and you need to understand your mother's triggers. And out of that, you can create a whole new life of understanding compassion, that everyone is evolving. Some people, if you go to your high school reunion, are evolving a little faster than others, but everyone is evolving.
And some a little slower than others. Why don't you share with us some of the people that you've had the privilege of reading their hands? Because I know you've connected with so many celebrities.
Yeah, I've read Ben Stiller because he was out giving his accepting an award. I'm in Zurich because we have the film festival here, so these stars come through. I think I really like the story when I read Eminem, because it was so absurd, because he wasn't necessarily coming for a hand analysis. It wasn't on the top of his agenda. Going and being backstage, he had just canceled BBC. It was in front. Yeah, I was about to go out with 55,000 people at the Reading Festival in London. I don't know if any of you guys were there when he was about to perform, but if he was late because of me. He was late because I was inking his hand, and they were going, "Is this going to come off or what?" And I'm literally in the backstage with Eminem, asking him his life purpose, his dilemma. Where one part wants to go one direction, the other, so I can see it in there. And it was a process. It was definitely like, when you're trying to read these celebrities, it's always a crapshoot whether it's really going to happen, even if it's in writing that it's going to happen. I had the blessings that, funny enough, even though I had canceled the BBC, I was being brought in because we were getting the handprint for charity auction. So I was being, through the blessings of the BBC, they agreed to do it. So, but around the celebrities and, reading the hands, people like Tony Robbins and having now, if you look at my book, I have in the power of the hands, I have the hands of Keira Knightley and Gwen Stefani and Richard Branson, Johnny Depp, etc. You can look on my site, The Power in Your Hands. You can see that the book, it's a beautiful coffee table book, because we're trying to illustrate all these different hands and what you can visibly see from their life pattern from once you understand the theory. To be honest, what I have experienced, while it's amazing, I love reading celebrities, I have gotten more joy out of reading people that are just special. There are lines in the hands that are so extraordinary, like 1 out of 1,000, that when, like, for example, some people have a circle in the karate chop portion of their hand, and they're a treat to talk to, because those people have a really strong spiritual purpose, and they seem to connect to energy really well. They have a headline, which is this horizontal line that goes down there, and I end up having the most brilliant conversations about the nature of reality. I get more magic. Like yesterday, a woman talking about her book about how she was visited and haunted by ghosts, which I didn't really know anything about, but it was amazing to listen to her story, that it turned into a major book series, and it was. I think that just listening to people and listening to the difficulties that they've had, and then see how those difficulties are just mirrored in the hands, because I've already write out the difficulty ahead of time and then I show them. I think that's the most fascinating part. One of my favorite was just reading the hand of a shoemaker in Switzerland. You're like, you have to read this woman's hand. It's a shoemaker. Seriously? I've got a lot on my plate right now. You got to go read that woman's hand. And then I go in, and sure enough, she is like everybody who does things for 20,000 hours does it at a spiritual level. And when you look at her hands, you look at her mission, and she is not a hand reader. She's a shoe reader. You walk in, she can see everything about the way that you treat yourself and care for yourself. And she's got this whole philosophy, and she counsels people. So people are coming to get their shoes fixed, but having counseling, and she's counseling a whole community of 200 people. So the role that people have, or the position, or the celebrity status, or whatever, isn't that awesome when you look at the big picture. And when I've read a lot of celebrities, like I was just reading Timberlake, and Jessica Biel's mother, it was beautiful to be able to see the pattern, right? That the family constellation is all many different parts of the puzzle to get a celebrity into that position. And many sacrifices are made, and that person is existing in a constellation where people are equally as traumatized as you look outside in your life right now. And you can see authentically that we're all human beings. And you think that your life is just overwhelming sometimes. I guarantee you every single person on this planet has the same constellation, whether they're in the slums, whether they're in a VIP office at the top of Manhattan. We're in a constellation, and we all are triggered because we all are human beings.
I know you have so many great offers for people to learn more about the power in your hands. Do you have a webinar coming up?
Yes. So when you go to my website, you'll have a chance to book a 2-hour hand analysis. And in the same page, a lot of people just go, well, I want to know more. So on Sundays, we offer an understanding. I show visually the science behind it. I show you people who've gone through a before and after transformation. The before and after transformation is pretty amazing, because you're looking at people that look about 15 years older, and then they move to 15 years younger. And you're going, what? Did I find the fountain of youth? But I have about 200 examples of people that look like 15 years younger. And the way that that's possible is that you just need to understand stress ages you. But if you can release the stress, you're going to be like, I'm released. And then all that area that you're carrying, the bags and the line, and the frustration, that monkey's off your back, and you're released, and you develop back into the person you love. So and that happens really short. Like your hands change with the process. Your hands get more softer, rosier, instead of scaly, dry, and detached. So that is what we discuss in the webinar. It's 1 hour. It's on Sundays. It's in California time, normally at about 12 o'clock. And of course, it's worldwide. It's a Zoom session. So if you're in Europe listening, then this would be approximately 9 o'clock at night. So yeah, check it out. And I read your hand. So when you submit your hand, I'll at least have a look at it, and I'll show you some talents that you have, as well as some things that I see you need to watch out for.
And I understand you offer a complimentary 15-minute booking for people to get a sense of the work that you do?
Yes. Yeah. In the similar way that we do in the webinar, where people submit their hands, you can have a one-on-one session, and I will give you a mini webinar, and I will look at your hands, and I'll say a couple of things. There's not a lot, that I can really go deep into it, but I can look at at least your fingerprints, and I can go, wow, okay, I see you have this trigger. And if you want to go forward, then what we would do is we would talk about your talents, your challenges. What are you made to do? What is your passion in life? What is your relationship pattern? What is your trigger? How do you act when you're in trigger? When you're in your shadow side? How much have you been in it? How are you going to break out of it? And who is this amazing person that you become? And we go through every line in your hand. Some people have real gift markers to be healers. Other people, real gift markers to be artists. Some people have really good business sense. So when I can acknowledge all the different parts, you're going to feel like I've been living with you for the last 20 years. And you're seeing a mirror. And the advantage of this is I can talk about your shadow side, and I have no mean agenda. I'm showing you something that maybe some people are afraid to tell you. But then I can show you it to you, and I can show you in a compassionate way why this is. And then I'll show you how to grow out of it. And that's the exciting part that we offer is a shift out of it. And that happens over a 10-day process over 3 sessions.
Well, that is so exciting. Well, Brent, can you share your website with us one more time?
Thank you. So www.thepowerinyourhands.com. I'm in Switzerland. Yes, you can send photos of your hands, and I do United States, California, all the time. Every evening. So we do worldwide hand analysis. So thepowerinyourhands.com. And then when you get there, you can watch a video, and then you'll see there's a family reading. There's a 2-hour reading. So in the family reading, you can read your whole children, the whole family constellation, and just have a package deal. As well as you can sign up for the 15-minute, as well as you can get your partner. So if you're evaluating if this person is the person I want to have a contract for life, yeah, you definitely probably want to get their hands read. So because you're going to get triggered by them, and you need to understand what their triggers are so you can be kinder in the evolution and see if you are in the same soul path, going in the same direction, and how you can value each other. It's an amazing gift to give somebody for birthday, or to evaluate for yourself before you're about to go into a new deal. I have read the board of directors for an entire insurance company, an entire marketing company has gone through this. So it just brings an incredible amount of energy, because if I can reduce you out of your shadow, then you're going to be alive, touched, moved, and inspired. And that means all that energy that's normally used to protect you, just think when you're stressed and shut down, goes to something creative, fun, and in trust. You will be on fire. And that revenue you have is commensurate, direct, 1-to-1. You're as productive as you are in your shadow. And if I can show you how to increase your energy, especially if you're over 55 and you're wondering if you have the stamina to be able to continue in the job that you want, if I can show you how to extend that for 10 years more because of the patterns we see in the hand, that might be worth having a 2-hour conversation about.
Well, Brent, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you. And thank you for the forum. Thank you for going this far with me. And in our session, I will try to trigger you. Yeah. And then I'm going to show you how to get out of it. So trust, I come from a good place. I'm going to give you mastery over this so that you can hopefully enjoy your Thanksgiving and your mother more.
Well, thank you, Brent. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about how to overcome our patterns and triggers. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.